Ponte. Okay, I'm going to take some time to talk about polysaccharides as future sustainable materials, but I'm also going to broaden a little bit the topic, not only about polysaccharides, but also the whole concept of a sustainable materials. I'm also very glad that I'm also part of what is in Austria, the Austrian boat community. That is a community of innovators. That is, I was recently traveling in Austria, and I call it boat and conference. So we went from Vienna to Salzburg, Innsbruck, and then we ended up in Vorarlberg talking to Austrian innovators. And I'm really impressed about the ecosystem in Austria and in many areas. So it's a pleasure also in that sense to be here. So I work for KU Leuven. KU Leuven is located in Leuven, and Leuven is very close to Brussels, only about 20 minutes by train. We are already for many years considered the most innovative university in Europe, and we are number 7 in the world. So this is an activity that we started many years ago, but it gives a good indication on how positioned we are in Europe and worldwide. I'm also, as mentioned, I'm president of EPNOE Association. So the goal of the EPNOE Association is to connect the international polysaccharide community, and here we have several members. So EPNOE has large company as members like Cargill, Suzano, Lenzing, again, you see from Austria. We have large institutes, VTT, Fraunhofer, universities like ETH Zurich, TU Graz here with us. And we have also small companies like Borel bioproducts and so on. So we have about today around 45 company research institutes and universities, and 11 companies as members of EPNOE. So what I do, my research in KU Leuven is that, as was already mentioned, I'm professor in chemical engineering for health and care. And my work is divided in personal care. So we work about assistance for cosmetics and hygiene, functional therapeutics in the area of pharmaceuticals and cell therapies, and functional prevention in the area of nutrition and active materials. So I lead a group in these areas. We are doing a lot of hydrogels. We have bioreactors to produce polymers, to produce polysaccharides, and so on. And also have a long experience with renewables from Brazil and from Finland, where I was heading a lab. So the area of renewables is very comfortable for me, and the area of bio-based materials and hybrid materials, that is a combination of bio-based with synthetic systems, is also very active. And I'm a member of 3 different institutes. One is the Leuven One Health, this Leuven Institute for Micro and Nanoscale Integration, and one system here for single-cell omics. So future sustainable materials, it's a very hot topic because we find these everywhere. I mean, in many communities. So I live here in a small community in the countryside, and if I just live here I live close to the town hall here, and they have these blocks everywhere about the sustainable development goals. It's very popular and spread everywhere, and we have these 17 goals to transform our world, and they go from zero hunger to health to different types of partnerships. When we talk about future sustainable materials, we have to keep in mind that they don't need to be fully bio-based, as it was already mentioned, but they need to be circular. So we need to look at what is called completely circularity here, requiring for that recycling or reabsorption. I mean, if you are having a system that's going to be reused by nature, or reused in a value chain, reabsorption is important. What is very important also and very challenging is that the materials processing involve no carbon emission. They deliver the target functionality. They are eco-friendly, and there is no impact on health effects. And here I would say both planet and human health, right? Both planet and human health. And one topic that is very important is that these materials are cost competitive to be largely accessible. So this is something to be considered. It's not about having an advanced material that is not accessible either via technology, via scaling, and via cost for different let's see levels of the society. And then we have some issues that are also very important, I think. I just took here something from press, but also some internal information we have. I also had this in our last conference in EPNOE. The question is, why do we need so many chemicals? And here we see article from The Guardian that is actually climate pollution a threat comparable to climate change. So we have more than 100 million novel entity chemicals that are in circulation with health impact. And here they talk about 3,600 synthetic chemicals used in food preparation and packaging. And this ends up in our body. The issue is about you have a chemical, and then this chemical is degraded, and other chemicals, and these chemicals interacting from other chemicals. So it's like a domino effect of the presence of these chemicals. In Europe, we produce about 317,000 chemicals in Europe. And if you just do an exercise at home and you just take your toothpaste or something in your kitchen or some cleaning product, and if you look at the formulation there, you see there are so many components. And the question is, why do we need so many chemicals in our formulations? Could not be possible to replace this with some multifunctional biodegradable systems. So these are questions for thinking about. There is a push all the time for growth of the chemical industry, and the impact we are having now, we are reaching a limit that is very difficult to come backwards, right? One example are the microplastics. So, microplastics are these very small particles that are formed when plastics is degraded. And you know that plastic is not only polymer. Plastic is a mixture of polymer and additives. And these small particles, they are everywhere. They are present in outdoor air, they are present in indoor air, we have them in water, have them in aquatic products, even salt and fruit and vegetables. We are eating these. And they are also present in our body. They are present in different tissues of the body. And they have a lot of risk health effects. In the brain, for example, the particles can reach the brain. They can be in the kidney, for example. They can impair the renal function, can do a ecological imbalance in our intestinal flora, for example. This can be a very big impact in our immune systems. In the genital system, causing problems with infertility or reproductive capacity impairment, hepatic problems, lung problems. But there's also something quite interesting because the RS microplastics are also hindering plant photosynthesis. So this threatens millions within starvation because this is reducing the photosynthetic production. So, and this in the future might be a challenge. But it's also quite interesting. This is from a Chinese publication from last year, showing that microplastics can also have different effects between males and females. Females tend to accumulate more microplastics in their tissues than males because of the characteristics of these tissues. So the physiological structure of the tissues, so the mean diameters of the vessels in females are narrower, leading here to a higher concentration of microplastics. So this leads to gender differences in microplastics and also different impacts. And you see here the list of the different types of polymers that are used, polyethylene terephthalate, polypropylene, polyethylene. This is a chlorinated system. You see this PVC system. So there is a lot of different components present. And what is quite interesting here is this gender difference. So chemicals and plastics are really these are one of the challenges we have, right? I also look at, especially for this presentation, about some mega trends for smart production of sustainable materials in the next 10 years, right? And I made together using Copilot and carefully checking the references, this type of, say, roadmap. And so the mega trends for smart production of these sustainable materials. And here we have several, let's say, areas that are very important. For example, the digitalization in industry that is growing about 14.7% a year. And it is here about Internet of Things, the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and clouds for bioanalytics and automation. They are also increasing. The use of biorenewable and renewable feedstocks. I'm going to talk about this in more detail in the context of polysaccharides. We talk about 12% growth. Green chemistry and process intensification. We have a forecast here. It's between 121 billion in 2025 to 200 billion in 2030, with very impressive growth. Artificial intelligence, this is something that is really taking off in many areas, and machine learning. Circular economy integration is going to have a very big impact. We're talking about circular economy practice can unlock $4.4 trillion by 2030. This could be also cut emissions, right, by 2030, already 13% by using circularity. And we see here that about 75% of companies are adopting this practice by 2030. Advanced manufacturing technologies, as I'm also going to talk about that. We talk about 16% annual growth. Artificial intelligence and machine learning. Decarbonization is very important. Brigitte mentioned this about the goal in Europe. So this is a very strong focus now on decarbonization and energy efficiency. So we have to target about this Fit for 55. We talk about minus 55% in emissions and a route to net zero 2050. So there's a big need to follow and to go to this to go to these targets in Europe, and also about global sustainability standards and regulations. So we start first with bio-based and renewable feedstocks, because the sustainable material markets are expected to rise from 284 billion to about 800 billion, with about 12% growth rate. And here is a very interesting moment for biodegradable plastics and natural fiber composites. And I would like to say about polysaccharides, because polysaccharides are one of the biggest source of these renewable materials. Polysaccharides are life. They are present in different forms of life in nature, from a tree or from different types of, can come also from bacteria. They are present also here in shells of different microorganisms. They are very abundant. Chemically, they are very nice structures and with very special functionality that can be exploited. Like the cellulose is a linear polymer, while in chitosan we have a presence of what is called these amino groups. We have dextran, that is a microbial polysaccharide that has many interesting properties for biomedical applications, together with hyaluronic acid, for example, or amylopectin and amylose that are present in starch. They also have a lot of applications. Cyclodextrin, that is made from starch, for example, can be used in drug delivery. And alginate, that has several applications. And this alginate is also has some exquisite properties when we have different combinations of this glucuronic and manuronic acid. So it's one polymer, but with many possibilities of functionality, right? So if you look at a comparison, just a gross comparison between polysaccharides and conventional plastics, polysaccharides are coming from renewables and plastics are coming from non-renewables, right? Polyethylene, polystyrene, and polypropylene. A small remark, you can make polyethylene from from renewable resources via ethanol, for example, but the material is going to be the same, okay? But it's going to be the same as the fossil one. The biodegradability of the polysaccharide system is quite interesting because microbials can degrade it. And most of the time, conventional plastics made from fossil sources, but also the ones that are bio-based, like polyethylene, they are non-biodegradable and they are persistent in the environment. So, and they also have, in the case of polysaccharides, they have low carbon emissions from biomass resources. They have minimal contribution to pollution, while these conventional plastics, they have higher carbon emissions during the production from fossil fuels, and they have accumulation of plastic waste, microplastic, and so on. And there's a lot of discussion about making these plastics recyclable. But one thing that we have to be also, I'd like to come back, is that plastic is not only polyethylene. It is polyethylene plus a lot of additives. And there is about 10,000 different additives used in the production of plastics. Even sometimes some people that are producing plastic, they don't know the additives that they are using because of history in the industry and so on. And these 10,000 types of plastics, about 1,000 of the most used is also the impacts on health and so on. There's a lot of question marks there, what makes this system very difficult to recycle. If we look at the publications in polysaccharides by the different subject area, we see that polysaccharides are practically in many areas. So in material science, we see a lot of publications in biochemistry, for example, in between the 90s and 2025. We see focus on chemistry. And when we look at more recent years, we see that there is a growth here more in this agricultural area. So the agricultural applications of polysaccharides are increasing. Areas like pharma, chemical engineering, science, they still, but chemistry still continue, but we have a slight increase here in the agricultural part. It's quite interesting to see how polysaccharides are combined. So we're talking about sustainability, sustainable materials, and future sustainable materials, how they are related to the sustainability goals. And we see that most of the publication of the research, it's dealing with good health and well-being. Of course, we have also something related to clean water and sanitation, zero hunger, climate action, and responsible consumption and production. But most of it is about health applications. So, and here we see that polysaccharides, they can be applied for different, very interesting health applications, because we can produce like different structures, gels, microspheres, sponges, 3D printed systems, composites, films, and membranes. And we can use it in different applications, in bone, in cartilage, in vasculature systems, in cell and gene therapy, in drug delivery, and skin and wound healing, for example. One interesting application and one of the interesting aspects of this use of bio-based systems is that the possibility to use bio-inspired engineering. So we can design, we can look at biological systems, so like what is present in nature, in plants or in animals, and we can apply manufacturing application for different types of bio-inspired materials. And it can be used, for example, electrospinning or 3D printing for different applications, for civil engineering, construction, marine applications, and medical. Here there are some examples of these bio-inspired functional materials. So here is based on a inspiration of the Salvinia molesta. And here with this egg beater structure on the plant allows to do a separation of a mixture of water and oil. By just putting this water and oil here on the top of the structure, the oil goes down and the water is kept on the top of the system. So here we would be able to create for example, by printing and so on, structures that will be able to separate water and oil. And this would be a system, for example, that could be applied in the chemical industry, for example, or in many other types of applications. Other example we see from nature is these bio-inspired stimuli-responsive properties, like we have here, where we have this material that is active depending on the amount of humidity. So when you have a dry system and when we have the wet system, so depending on the weather condition, you could have a system that is opening or closed. So you like a wall that when it's dry, it is open, and if it starts raining, it closes because the cellulose microfibrils interacts with this humidity, interacts with water, and it closes. So this is one very simple didactical example on how to copy this to future materials that could be used, for example, in sustainable construction, where you can have a stimuli responsive walls, for example, right? There are also in the area of composites systems for energy absorption. For example, with plants or animals, we have very exquisite structures that were tailored by evolution of millions of years to stand against certain forces and against wind, against changes in the weather, and so. And here is one example are trees. Huh? So trees, they can survive in very special conditions of wind and temperature change and so on, and mechanical forces. And this is because they have a very special 3D structure on their fiber walls, and with 3 different layers of fibrils organized in different angles. And these systems can be used as an inspiration to do 3D printing of materials with similar properties, materials that can have much better capacities for reinforcement to sustain compression and so on. These are examples of using of these bio-inspired systems. Huh? So in EPNOE, we wrote 2 roadmaps. We call EPNOE Roadmaps 2040. And we have the research roadmap, and we have the one that is dedicated to scaling, upskilling all professionals for a sustainable Europe. And this roadmap involved 20 more than 20 high-level student scientists from 13 European countries. It was led by myself and by my colleague, Professor Karistana Kleinschek from TU Graz. She's our Vice President of Research. And we had several 4 main focus areas: material science and engineering, food and nutrition, biomedical applications, and chemistry, biology, and physics. And you also have here Tanya Vrodenik from TU Graz that took care of the chemistry part. What is interesting about this system is that this roadmap, which is published in Carbohydrate Polymers. So there we have information available as open access. And there is an overall scheme where we look at material science and engineering, about processing of polysaccharides, about energy storage and harvesting, and tailored and polysaccharide materials for different applications as materials. We look at food, we look at biomedical applications, we look at the chemistry and biology and physics. We look at the current challenges available, the required research activities, and how these in 2040 is going to be achieved in form of sustainable systems, process technologies, and products. So as the focus here is materials, I would like to bring the findings of this, short findings of our roadmap that was prepared by Magnus Norgren and Norwegian Tatiana Butova about material science and engineering. So the main objectives in material science and engineering is to adopt a new paradigm to increasingly integrate bio-based polymers in high-end technological materials, in device and in products. So the challenges we have is to develop these polysaccharide-based high-end technological materials. to optimize processing systems and to adapt this to other technologies, from other technologies. So we take inspiration what is done with synthetic polymers, with semiconductors, and we bring to polysaccharides. And we want to incorporate this in energy, in photonics, in electro-optical devices, in bioimplants and biosensors, but also the area of automotive and energy efficient buildings. The required research activities here to fabricate these technological polysaccharide-based materials, we combine them with other functional materials, so we can use biomimetics, as I mentioned before, of form and function. So we can look at the different inspirations that can come from nature, both from mechanical properties, but also from photonics applications. So the examples we have in nature about photonic systems with changes of colors or interaction with lights, changing the wavelength. So we want to investigate new or not new used polysaccharides coming from different sources, including exotic systems, but also to increase the use of computational machine learning and operando characterization tools in this polysaccharide research. So this is very important in material discovery, the use of this data-driven discovery, the use of structural energetics, and the applications of machine learning. The required research activities also involve a swift transition to implement additive manufacturing and 3D bioprinting. I'm going to show a little bit about that. And there are also other emerging technologies and new processing approaches. To use eco-friendly solvents for dissolution and shaping to decrease waste, and also to increase durability, because this is very important when we talk about circularity. So durability is a key issue that we were able to allow to lower costs and to encourage marginal penetration, for example, in construction and in automotive industry. So here is a parking garage, for example, that is it's made of translucent wood, for example. So this is the use of wood material in construction in a sustainable way. Also, the use of this for electronic and energy materials, for battery applications, for supercapacitors, for electrical nanogenerators in Internet of Things and sensors, but also transient electronics and bioelectronics. There are possibilities to use polysaccharides in photovoltaic applications, so particularly cellulose-based substrates, but also developing a field of living materials. So there are systems that we combine polysaccharides with living systems, and we create systems that are, for example, they are able to create 3D structures that are self-organizing. They can also self-heal if they are damaged. When we talk, as I was talking about the processing of polysaccharides, we talk about these advanced manufacturing technologies. And these advanced manufacturing technologies, we have a forecast that's going to grow from 20 billions to 88 billions and about 23% yearly production. And this goes from prototype and to certified end user parts, but also recycled feedstocks for different applications. And so here I show one example. This is a collaboration we had. We developed the material and we collaborated with TU Graz to make a 3D printing of polysaccharide-based system that has a very interesting characteristics for applications in biomedical applications. It is biocompatible. There is a solvent-free system. We are just melting the polysaccharide, and we can make very nice 3D structures of these systems that can be used, for example, biomedical scaffolds. Other very interesting application is the use of these systems to produce organ on a chip. So there is a current need to replace animal tests with non-animal tests, and organ on a chip can be quite interesting in the future technology to replace this. We can use different types of microfabrication and 3D printing and soft lithography. We use polymers here, hydrogels and biocompatible surfaces. These systems can be integrated with sensors or not. And we can even create multi-organ models, so that would be replacing animal tests. So This is very, very needed at this moment because many of the work that is done with animals is also very expensive. There is also the ethical issue, but there is also a difficulty to translate some of the results we have with animals to humans. And we are able to develop organ ownership that can be quite interesting alternatives to current animal tests. And that area, biofabrication, comes as a very important area because we can use cells, proteins, biological materials, and biomaterials as building blocks to manufacture biological systems. And here we can produce complex living and non-living biological products from raw materials using living cells, molecules, extracellular matrix, and biomaterials. The industrial potential is very big here. It's not only about biomedical application, but also for applying in different areas. It can be very useful for highly predictive human cell and cell tissue technologies and for drug discovery, toxicity, environmental toxicology, but also for sustainable energy, animal-free food, leather, fur products, and it's highly interdisciplinary. So here's one example of this where we can use, for example, a bioprinting impact construct. So we can make a liver on a ship. So we can use liver cells. We grow these liver cells in a reactor. We put this on a ship, and we are able to, via the analysis of biomarkers of the liver, to study, for example, the impacts of the different pharmaceuticals on the liver. Or we can make 3D spheroid constructs like these spheroids. There are spheroids made with cells. This spheroid is about 200 microns. And we are able to put these spheroids and see, for example, they are behaving like the liver. They are producing, for example, albumin. That is one of the biomarkers produced by the liver. The spheroids produce them very well and in appreciable concentrations in 7 days culture, for example, in comparison with just with pure cells. So the spheroids produce much more biomarkers. And here we see the functionality of these spheroids in cultures. You see producing not only albumin, but also very relevant biomarkers for the liver, like this ceruloplasmin, the transferrin, and the albumin. And this system can be used to study drug toxicity. So we can put this into a system, and you can see, for example, if you apply paracetamol on this ship, how this is going to affect the production of the different biomarkers. You see, here is the black one is without the drug, and here is with the drug. You see the impact of the production of the albumin, the impact of production of transferrin, and the ceruloplasmin, and so on. So we have a system that we are able to study, for example, drug toxicity on a small ship instead of using animal tests. So this is one example. Another example that is quite interesting is coming now is it's called in-body bioprinting. So you can print inside the body. So you use bioprinting of biomaterials or cells directly into the body to do this localized tissue engineering. So we use biodegradable polymers and hydrogels. You can apply here for different areas: skin regeneration, dental reconstruction, bone. And here is like one example where you can use these liposomes containing a sort of cross-linking agents, and you apply here ultrasound to do the printing inside the body. So instead of using a device outside and putting inside the body, you would do this directly inside the body using these gel systems. And finally, the last part I'd like to talk is about the cell factories, because we can use these microbial cell factories to produce chemicals and to produce materials. So, and here lies a very big potential. So we can take substrate from biomass, we can take genes from different types of plants and microorganisms. We can use this substrate and control this metabolism to create different types of chemicals, pharmaceuticals, polymer building blocks, and biocatalysts, for example, enzymes, right? And for this, we can produce polymers that can be nanostructured. We can produce cells or bacteriophages for application in pharma. We can produce viruses for carriers in vaccines, for example, or virus-like particles. We can produce systems, material assemblies containing protein, or even metal magnetic particles. And what is interesting here is that with the two technologies coming together, both what is called this CRISPR, is a genome editing technology, and artificial intelligence, we are going to advance a lot in cell factory technology. So here we expect, for example, by 2030, about 15 billion increase in this area of genome editing, precision for fermentation, about 36 billion. We're producing here custom designed proteins and chemicals, bioreactor innovations, also advancing technologies for cell growth, and systems metabolic engineering. Here is coming with the two new ways to do the genome editing using this CRISPR technology and the use of artificial intelligence in systems biology and synthetic bioengineering. So to summarize, I would say that we have sustainable materials are essential for planet and human health. That smart production of sustainable materials requires adoption of renewable feedstocks, green chemistry and engineering, advanced manufacturing technologies, circular economy integration, and machine learning and artificial intelligence methods. The polysaccharides are sustainable materials. They are safe. They have a potential to be applied in many areas, from food to energy applications. That biofabrication and cell factories are promising technologies to replace animal tests, to promote regenerative medicine, and also sustainable productions of chemicals and materials, particularly now with more contribution from artificial intelligence and the use of CRISPR. And I would like to thank ESEIA for the nice invitation and your attention also. Thank you very much.